Hi, I'm Gary, and welcome to my galley. And in the galley today, I have two smoking hot, twice baked stuffed potatoes. This one, caramelized onions, prosciutto, and gouda. Yum. This one, traditional, bacon, cheddar, sour cream. Both delicious. So if you're ready, let me show you how I make twice baked potatoes. So here we are again, baking potatoes. I've got my large baking potato, my large roasted potato. I have stabbed it all over with a knife to let that steam escape. If you watch the episode on baking potatoes, you know that we stab them so the steam escapes and we don't end up with a steamed potato. We end up with a baked potato. And I'm using my avocado oil here, and I like that because it has such a high smoke point. I'm putting these potatoes in an oven that is set at 425 degrees. So I want an oil that's going to be able to withstand that. Massage your potato really well with the oil of your choice, and then I'm going to cover the whole potato with kosher salt. And again, if you haven't seen the episode on baking potatoes, make sure that when you wash your potatoes that it's dry before you continue. And now our potatoes are ready for the oven, and we're putting our potatoes in a 425-degree oven, and we're going to check them in an hour. We've got our potatoes in the oven, and while they're baking, let's go over all the things that I want to stuff into these twice baked potatoes. So let's talk about the first one that we're going to do, and we'll call that the classic traditional twice baked potato. And it's really kind of all of those things that you love on your baked potato. Shredded cheddar, and feel free to use white cheddar here. Crumbled up cooked bacon, some green onions, and of course, butter, and sour cream. Now, when you're buying your sour cream, I always try to either look for a label that I know, a local dairy, and if there's nothing that I know or a local dairy, Daisy is always a beautiful choice because when you read the ingredient list, you will see the ingredients. And it's just grade A pasteurized milk. A lot of these sour creams will have corn syrup and different enzymes and xanthan gums and lots of crazy stuff in there. So when you're picking your sour cream, always take a glance at the ingredients to make sure you're getting just pure fresh ingredients. Now for my second potato, and I just want to share with you that there's not a lot of boundaries when you're doing a twice baked potato. Really any kind of thing that you like. So for that one, I've caramelized some onions and I want to chop them up really fine. I was looking for a smoked gouda and I couldn't find one, and I found this caramella cheese, and it is similar to gouda and has like a parmesan kind of feel to it. It's very nutty. So if you can't find smoked gouda, anything that's close to that will work. And I just happen to have some leftover prosciutto, so I'm going to chop this up and put it in there as well. You can absolutely do no meat. You can do a twice baked potato with no meat. Just do your smoked gouda and your caramelized onions. Meat is not a requirement. So my potatoes out of the oven, I actually went an hour and 10 minutes. I checked them at an hour and they just weren't quite there. So I gave them another 10 minutes, and a great way to check is just take a knife and you just want to be absolutely no resistance pushing your knife in. But I like to take my potatoes temperature. Have you taken your potatoes temperature lately? But you really want between 200 and 210, and 210 I think is really the perfect hot spot. And we're at 208, so this potato's gonna be perfect. Now I'm gonna let these cool down because They're a little too hot to handle. And while they're cooling down, take a second, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and hit the notification bell in case you haven't already. So while our potatoes are cooling down, I want to just take a moment and talk to you about how wonderful the twice baked potato is as a side dish. Because you can make this a day, 2 days in advance, have them in the refrigerator, let them sit out at room to come up to room temperature, and then 25 minutes in the oven, and you have a beautiful side dish. Easter's coming up, they go great with your ham. So anytime you're having a dinner party or just planning in advance, they're perfect to do ahead. But when you do them ahead, just make sure you stuff them first. Because this is a potato that has been baked and now it's cold. And this is going to be really hard to incorporate all those ingredients in because you can see it's gotten very dense and solid. So just make sure that you stuff them first and then you can store them in the fridge. So now we have a couple choices. You can cut them in half and then each serving will be a half a potato, or you can just take a little bit of that top off and each serving would be pretty much the whole potato. And that's really the way I like to do it. If you are having a gathering that for a lot of people, then you can do them in half and then one potato will serve 2 people. So you can still see how hot they are. So I'm going to go ahead and take off these tops. Now you can do it from the top like this. And I do like my serrated knife for this. Or if it's easier, you can put them on their side. Just it gives you a better eye line of sight to go down. And one more to go. So I'm going to just set 2 of these aside because we're going to do 2 different potatoes. So up first, we're going to do the classic, or what I think everybody kind of thinks of when they think of twice baked potato. And I find that a melon baller or a teaspoon, this I think is a half of a tablespoon, but I like to just kind of score it around the edges because I want to leave a little bit of a wall to make sure that my potato is stable. The potato was hot, so I got a little protection. And then you just want to scoop out and scoop around. You're making a boat. And just be careful not to puncture through, not to go through and make a hole or make it too thin on the bottom. And you can see that that broke a little bit right there. And if something like that happens, don't panic. It's going to be just fine. Now, when we come back to the top, there is a little potato in here. And I scoop it out, and you can scoop all of it out. But I just like to scoop a little bit of it out, and then I save these because I'm going to make potato skins with them. Doesn't that sound yummy? So you can leave out any of these ingredients, but the butter is pretty much one that you really want to make sure you add. And the way I like to do my potatoes, my twice baked, and I don't ever even have to think about looking up a recipe because it's always the same. For each potato, I do 1 tablespoon of butter, so I've got 2 tablespoons of butter in there. And then I'm going to a 1/4 cup. And then this is so simple and easy to remember that you'll always know each potato of everything gets a 1/4 cup. So because I have 2 potatoes, I'm doing a 1/2 cup. And then the same thing for my cheese, 1/4 cup per potato. So I'm going to do 1/2 cup of cheese. Now my scallions, this is optional. I had some in the refrigerator. They needed to be used. So I thought we'll pop those in there. And this is something that you can play with because you might find you like more bacon or more cheese. And then the sour cream. 1/4 cup per potato. And I will have the recipe over at Gary's Galley, so if you feel like you need it, it's in the description below. Then I'm going to do some pepper, and you know I love my pepper blend, but you can do white or you can do black. And then if you watched my episode on mashed potatoes, this is the same concept. We don't want to get a mixer in here or a blender, because if we beat these potatoes up too much, they're going to turn into a glue-like substance, almost kind of like wallpaper paste. They get very gluey because you've just broken down all of those starches in there, and we don't want to do that. So I like my just basic potato masher for this. And I like to use my ricer, where I would rice the potatoes and then add in my fixings, but I know a lot of people don't have that potato ricer, so I'm going to use the potato masher because it works just fine. And I'm waiting on my salt because I want to make sure this is mixed up well before I taste it, because I'm going to have salt with the cheese and I'm going to have salt with the bacon, and I want to make sure I don't over salt it. So let's taste it and see if we need how much salt we need. And I'm going to go with one big and one small little pinch there and see how that does. It needs just a little bit of salt, but not too much. But you're better off to just salt as you go and taste so that you don't over salt. I can always add more. I can't take it away. And let's do one more taste. I'm declaring that one perfect. Now, when it comes to stuffing back your potatoes, I like to do a little bit of salt and pepper in there, because for those people who like to eat the whole potato skin, you want that to have nice flavor to it. So before I stuff back in, I'm going to salt and pepper. Then I like just to dab them inside with a little melted butter, and this will help keep the skins from getting really dried out. And then stuffing, you can stuff with a pastry bag, or you can do it with a spoon. I'm going to do this one with the pastry bag to show you, and then we'll do the other set with a spoon to show you that as well. You want the largest piping tip that you have. Something as large as that or larger. I don't have a star tip really that's large enough, but we're going to go with this. And you want that large tip because you got bacon bits and scallions, and it will tend to get clogged up on you. And I like the star tip. You can absolutely do it with the plain tip, and I like the star tip because it makes a pretty design on top. And a lot of times in restaurants, we'll use the star tip so it looks pretty when it's being presented. Another thing you can do once you have your mix is put it in a cast iron skillet or a casserole dish, and then you can just have twice baked potato casserole. So inside here is not so much important. I just like to make sure that my inside is nice and full. She's being cooperative with me today, not clogging up. And then I like to come back to the top, and that's when you can give it that classic twice baked potato swirl on top. Doesn't that look pretty? Got a little crooked there. And that's the beautiful thing. You can't mess up. It's still going to be pretty. Got my baking sheet here ready to go. I'll put those on my baking sheet. I'm going to drizzle the top with just a little more of that butter, melted butter. And then sprinkle a little extra cheese on top just for pretty. We'll set those aside while we make our other two potatoes. So we're going to do this exact same as we did the other ones. I'm going to kind of mark my way around so that I know I leave myself a nice edge. Get that nice and scooped out. And so I got a little close here, kind of on purpose, just to show you that if you do accidentally get too close to the edge, again, don't panic. It's going to be fine. For this stuffing, we're going to use the same principles. We're going to go a tablespoon of butter per potato. And then we're going to jump to that 1/4 cup, and we're going to do a 1/4 cup of sour cream per potato. And then we have our caramelized onions that I chopped up really fine. And we're going to go a 1/4 cup per potato of onions, giving us a 1/2 cup for these two. And then you guessed it, a 1/4 cup of cheese. And this is that smoked Gouda style cheese. It's really good, very, very nutty flavor. And this is just some prosciutto that I had in the fridge. I needed to use it, and I just thought I'll throw that in there. Now normally I don't. I make these with just onions and the cheese. But this just shows you exactly how versatile it is to make these twice baked potatoes and how you can customize them to your own taste. And again, masher, we don't want to beat them up. We just want to mix them up. Now this is going to have a tendency, again, to be salty because that prosciutto is salty and that cheese is very salty. So we want to mix this up before. All right, I got my spoons ready so we can taste. Make sure they're mixed up nice. Just a little. I think just a little. One thing about potatoes, they can handle a whole lot of salt. Doesn't that look pretty? I don't know how it looks on the camera, but it looks really pretty. So twice baked potato is great for leftovers in the fridge. Maybe you have leftover ham. You got some cheese you need to use. Oh, these are going to be so yummy. I just love them like this. So we're going to salt and pepper our little potato boats here. Some butter. I'm going to put my oven on 350. So these we're going to stuff with the spoon. And just use your spoon and make sure that you're well stuffed in there. Twice baked potatoes are good for you're having appetizers, then you get the little tiny small potato and do them. And if you do that, make sure that you get a couple russets and bake for the filling, because you won't have enough filling for those small ones, and the small potatoes tend to be waxy and not get as fluffy. So now that we're stuffed inside, we're just going to kind of mount it up on top. Kind of spread that all around. And then if you're like me, I just eat the leftovers with a spoon while I'm waiting. And then if you want to, you can do a fork and kind of give them some little hatch marks if you think that'll make them a little prettier. And it's kind of a good way to tuck them in. And I'm going to go a little bit of butter on the top again, just like in our traditional. And I had a little extra of that cheese, and we'll sprinkle some of that on top. These are much bigger than those, aren't they? I have my oven on 350. These are going to take 20-25 minutes. You just want them warm and nice and brown on top. If you made them a day before or 2 days before, let them sit out, come to room temperature before you put them in the oven. We're out of the oven. It was about 25 minutes, and it's really pretty and golden brown. If you wanted it more brown, you could obviously leave it in a little longer. Or gouda and onion. For some reason, those two are the bigger ones. They're really hot. But the exciting thing is, while I was waiting, I used the tops of those potatoes and maybe some potato skins. I'm very excited about these. I don't think enough bars have potato skins on their menus anymore. Thanks everyone for being with me today. I am going to put the potato series on hold for a little bit because it's Valentine's Day, and I have some really fun, exciting things I want to do for Valentine's Day with you, and just some kind of in-season things and fun, exciting things I want to do. But we will come back to potatoes at some point because we still have the waxy red potatoes to do, and one of my favorites, sweet potatoes. So for now, I'm going to stop with the potatoes and move on to more fun, exciting things. So I'm going to taste my traditional one first. You can see that steam. So it's going to be really hot. But for you, I'm going to taste it. Now, of course, our traditional is cheese and bacon, sour cream, butter, all those things that we love on a baked potato anyway. And I actually kind of like that addition of that green onion. It really helps highlight some of that. Very good. Very yummy. But this is the one that I've been really looking forward to. And again, you could go without meat. I just had some prosciutto. So we've got caramelized onions, a gouda style cheese, and prosciutto. This on the top where it's going to be all crunchy. That's going to be the best part. That, you're going to make one, make that one. It's nutty from that cheese. It's salty from that prosciutto. It's delicious. It is just delicious. Creamy, smooth. And then, of course, you got a little bit of sweetness from those onions. That is delicious. And so just because I want to, I'm going to taste my potato skin. Crunchy, salty, crispy potato skin. Cheese, bacon, and of course, you have sour cream. Yeah, more restaurants should start adding potato skins back to their pub menus. So now that I've got potatoes to eat, I want to say goodbye. Thank you for being here. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you did. And you can hit that notification bell, give me a thumbs up, and until next time, safe cruising.